Welcome Protoners and fellow PSO2 players. This video is essentially a theory crafting and speculation video. It's mostly audio, so you can just listen to it. You don't need to see anything much, although we will probably be having some footage or images pop up every now and then. But other than that, it's pretty much a nice discussion between myself, Shin, and Spooks from Phantom Yosha, who runs his own YouTube channel. I hope that you all enjoy this theory crafting and speculation video. Alright, now, the thing is that we know Planet Alpha, but the thing is that we got so many theories from it being a simulation, a dream, the Guardians being sealed, and now the thing is that I've also come up with one where history is repeating itself. But
Right.
I'll focus more on Planet Alpha itself and why it kind of backs the simulation idea. If you look at this water here, like everyone thinks it's some sort of special thing. It's actually a water generator that you could find in South Alio. Like that ripple effect right behind us is similar to that you would find in a hose filling a kiddie pool as soon as the water gets high enough. But if you actually look at the name of Planet Alpha. Break it down a little. H and Alpha. Now the thing is that there's an odd thing about Greek and Hebrew in terms of languages. Each character is not just a character in an alphabet to make a word. Each character can also represent a number or an idea. In the case of Alpha, it means beginning or origin, but its a number is 1. So H1. Now what could H stand for? Holodeck 1? That's a possibility. That kind of reinforces it because the naming, like there's no way that they chose Planet Alpha's name carelessly. They probably planned some clues in it. That's why I broke it down and went like, there's a reason why they chose that name, and H and 1 kind of makes sense. It's a holodeck. That's one theory that kind of backs it up. Now the other part of it is the bridge connection, which is kind of odd. Like, if you look at it, it's all pointing at this one location on the map. In fact, we even have the castle in the sky right above us. So this is literally, Lake Hyphalia is the center point of the entire map. So I think that we actually have 5 regions, because lo and behold, in Japanese, 4 means death. But 5 in Hebrew also means grace. Kind of reminds you of that word-old trial we got recently called Stellar Grace. They might be hinting, hey, yeah, there's a 5th area if you know your languages.
So, are you suggesting that Alpha with the castles in the sky is another area?
Yeah, the castle in the sky is the other area.
And it's also essentially would be quote-unquote the last area that we're going to encounter.
Yeah, because take a look. All the animals here are level 60. This is the only area in the Alio region with level 60 monsters. But if you looked at the original level plan, where the tundra would have been, I believe, 30 to about 50, and then lo and behold, the next area would have been about, I think, 50 to 70, around there. It means that if they're around level 70 or level 65 at the end of Mount Doom, and yet the monsters here are level 60, it kind of matches it being hinting that this is a 5th area. That this area is actually going to be critical into the end part of the story.
See, I thought that, well, speculating, I thought that was maybe an elevator, a cannon, or something, but it's too big. But I don't know how big exactly it is, because we can't get that close to it. It's hard to tell what size it is. But it makes sense for it to be probably the smallest area in the game, but it is an area.
Yeah, like...
It's big enough.
And the thing is, all the bridges are very close to this one location. Whereas if I was a game developer, I would have spread them out, making them equal in each equidistant on the borders of each area. But no, they're all condensed around almost this one region, which is kind of hinting this is a critical point.
I like your idea. It makes sense.
And the fact that I looked at language to go like, hey, there's probably more here, because there's all sorts of little things. Like, did you pay attention to the floor of the Dark Falls event?
Yeah.
Yes.
It had like this like fluid going on, and it was all in the shapes of hexagons.
Yeah, but did you
Yes.
notice the texture of the hexagons? It's the same as that of the cocoons.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So it means that there's a relationship between dolls and Halpha.
I still think we're manufacturing dolls.
Well, here's the thing, is that I actually have a lot of theories now on the dolls after thinking about it. Like, we saw that the dolls are essentially a techno-organic species.
Yes, they are.
But the thing is that they have a lot of liquid in them. Now, what was the planet that Xion and Shao are from? A lot of liquid.
Oh.
So the dolls might be part of Shao, or a Xion clone that failed.
That's one possibility. Or maybe it's they're not Xion or Shao, but another entity that failed as well. Or
Right.
maybe there's also in some connection to the other past games, because I essentially thought about this like Phantasy Star Portable 2, if you encounter those. Essentially they those quote unquote gods also is kind of like functioning the same way. So it's also one of those theories.
Yeah, well, it kind of works because we kind of also look at the names that were used for some of the bosses, like Shiva. That's an Orient deity. But if you also looked at the Primal Darkness actually had names derived from the most infamously evil Twin Cities listed in the Abrahamic faiths of Sodom and Gomorrah. The
That's
two
right.
cities that God himself actually went out of his way to punish.
You guys definitely went deep on this more than I ever would.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that,
I can't add anything.
like, story-wise, it almost feels... No, it kind of hit me that there's that saying that history repeats itself when forgotten. Our character has forgotten history. Is history repeating itself? Because if you also think about it, the Akashic Records, like, at the end of PSO, we went like, oh, this is the end of the Akashic Records. I'm going like, no, it's not. It's just a new page in the Akashic Records. Kind of like a tablet, going like from one point of history to a next. Like some of the theories about ages on the Earth, we're leaving the fourth age going into a fifth age. There's always something that's linking the two ages together. And it's just a page flip between things. So history could be repeating itself because a lot of history is forgotten. Remember that in base PSO2, Xion was able to wipe everyone's memories beyond 10 years after in episode 2. Like, she literally wiped them. So the only entity that could do that would be like Shao. He could technically wipe out our memories. So there could be definitely a connection with Shao or a entity like Shao.
But essentially, according to what the others also know on NGS, they say that it's 1,000 years ago. So,
Yep.
like whatever happened in base PSO2, it will be it's thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So essentially, if Shao were to
He's
technically
immortal.
wipe out,
You,
yeah,
Xion's been alive for thousands of years. So Shao could technically be alive for thousands of years and still pull it off.
so it's not rooted on 10 years, but it can also stretch on to thousands of years.
Yeah, like Xion wiped out history of over probably 100 years from people's memory. So it's doable. In fact, actually, the thing is that I know from reading some studies that now there is a possibility that there could be a division, or we don't know why we've been sealed away or forgotten for so long. Now, one theory is that there was a civil war, and us being the Guardians, very high rank, very influential, they would be very dangerous to certain factions. Therefore, we could be put into cryosleep and forgotten about, and then reawoken when the system deemed necessary. But again, we don't have enough evidence to say that there's factions within arcs. Now, the simulation or a dream scenario does kind of fit, because, and I know I've experienced this, is that when you dream, you can remember the dream, but when you're in a dream, you can never remember really much about yourself.
That's correct.
And because of that, this could just be, a dream or a simulation. And when we go through the castle in the sky, we're actually disconnecting from the simulation computer and going back into our own body.
Well, me, Ina's not real.
Well, she could just be a person in the system, like, think of the Matrix, where everyone was plugged in.
I'm gonna go with Digimon.
Agumon!
Use my little Agumon.
But, actually, thinking of the dolls, and me mentioning that they kind of have that liquid, I've also noticed that if you look at the doll types, there's a sword, an axe, and then there's a rifle and a launcher one. Think about the Council of Six. Weren't there some council members that had some qualities that match those? Because we have Maria, who used a very big axe. We had Regius, he used a sword. And Zeno was, you learn his class is actually a ranger. Rangers use rifles and grenade launchers. So that covers all 4 types. And oddly enough, we have the Bujin, which has a very oriental themed, almost acting like a ninja or samurai. And who out of the Arc's hero representatives match that? Azumi. And lo and behold, we have a bouncer dread that could be Saga and Kotori. We got hintings that it could be members of Arc members that are essentially having their brains' knowledge and skill being used to command and control these dolls. Like, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that's a possibility that I stumbled upon?
I feel that's a stretch.
I think it's a stretch because I noticed that when some of the dolls move, they almost look like in a zombie state, meaning that it's not completely controlled.
I think that's also one possibility. If it's gonna be like a simulation, then of course there's the enemies, quote unquote, will have some type of course, you gotta make enemies, right? So in order for you to train, free to train new arcs, then this is essentially it.
Yeah.
So
well, the other
like
possibility,
it.
well, the other possibility I quickly thought of is that we could think of this running as a simulation, but the dolls are actually malware that has kind of gotten in and simulated some data.
I have a question. You said this little thing here produces water?
Yep, because look at the geography of the area. This is a high point. There's a lake, and this lake feeds multiple rivers. So where's that water coming from? It's coming from that generator. Because if you were to, like, have you ever used a kiddie pool before?
Right, but it looks like more like a drain.
No, the thing is the water's coming up out of the drain into the area.
Oh, the bottom is closed though. It's just closed. You can see like the lines showing like it's a metal closing.
Yeah, well, when I rendered it, it looked like a grate. So I was going like water passes through there.
It's actually closed right now. It could be that it shoots out water every so often, or when I initially saw this first, I assumed this was going to be a drain, and it's going to suck up all the water for the lake, and then that tower's going to fly down low or something. But definitely looks more like a drain. I don't. Yeah, it could be shooting. It could produce water. I don't know.
Yeah, because if I looked at the geography of it and went like, this is a high point. The lake is feeding rivers and creeks. So it means water has to be generated there. Where is it being generated from? We have 3 plates that have wave effects, which is very similar to a hose in a kiddie pool generating waves. So it made me go like, okay, this might be a generator, and lo and behold, we have cylindrical water generators in South Alio.
The only thing I could think of is, yeah, it could be a generator. I wish they used the same ones in South Alio, like the design. So
Yeah, well, I think the ones in South Alio are meant to spew it out in a special way, but because of the geography of Lake Hathalia, they couldn't put in that model. Probably because it's recycling it from some other area, and it can't just have a tower.
True.
But yeah, there's a lot of little mysteries I've noted. Like when, you remember when Alio Town gets destroyed and you're running through that tunnel?
Yeah.
Well, you encounter a doll, but you also can see the first hint that this planet's not natural with that computer panel. The thing is that computer panel has the same blue lighting that dolls have, which kind of reinforces the fact that there is probably a relationship between the two. So, and we can obviously tell that that Halpha is not a natural planet. It's artificial, either as a made planet by another race, or that it's a simulation. It's got to be one of those two.
Because essentially, if it's going to be like, if we go to scenario number 2 with a technological marvel that was made by someone or something else, then essentially, of course, first cutscene, we arrive in a ship. So that means the old ship has destroyed, and then we arrive in this planet, something like that. So that's also one of the theories there.
Yeah, well, the thing is that when I think about that ship sequence, I actually think of, the Sulaco in Aliens. When it goes like, oh, critical damage, eject survivors. The thing still is in orbit, it's just dispatched to someone. Now, oddly enough, thinking about that, Meteoran don't remember much. But something kind of struck me odd in the first chapter that Aina mentioned that Manon had good memory of her as being a Meteoran. But something was bugging me in the second chapter where we got to Retem. She was processing data in both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 very well, very accurately. But when we get to Retem... Yeah, very fast too. But when we get to Retem, and she's talking with Nadara at that gravesite, the way that she holds herself tells me she knows more than what she's letting on. And after a while, I quickly thought, well, what if Manon is a high caste? Think about it. Zero was a high caste who ran through data and looked very human, acted very human, but she was essentially always under Shao's orders and did processing for Shao in a way. So
it's actually Sarah. It's Sarah in disguise.
Yeah, well, you have to remember that we got introduced to a few types of high caste in episode 6. So there could be a couple of other new models of high caste, and that Manon is actually being essentially the spy, observing how everything is going, making sure things are in check and correct.
I'm going to say I don't remember much of the story very well as you guys, but I feel like the whole Manon does have some secrets. It feels like, but I feel like the high cast part is a little overthinking it maybe, and the simulation part is half. I feel like the simulation is more like this is a theme park. Like this was designed to train arcs, Meteorans, and such.
Well, yeah, it would help in making sure that they aren't rusty if they're in cryosleep for 1,000 years.
Right, this is just a theme park. It's not technically a simulation. The simulations are the cocoons and all that stuff. So,
well, you can have a simulation within a simulation.
You can, but let's just say it's a bit redundant. Let's say I feel like when you go to the office of Crawford's, he can, unless this simulation can simulate a whole universe. I mean, it's possible through the records.
Yeah, the Akashic records.
Are we actually in the records?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But I do think we're on a new page of the records. I think we are on a new page of the records.
Anime is hard, man. There's too many unanswered questions to really say for sure. I like your idea about by the meaning behind the words and the names. That makes sense.
Yeah, like, we just got to look at the quirks. Like, if we look at Nadara, like, the leaders of Ritem have always had this musical quality and a unique genetic trait. Well, we could almost say that Nadara could be a descendant of Cuna. Because if you look at...
Yeah.
Please no.
Well, the thing is that, look at the hair color. She has purple in her hair just like Cuna did. And furthermore, the fact that Cuna was a singer, and she probably had a unique genetic trait. You have to remember, she was genetically engineered with special genetics.
That's correct.
So that special genetics probably got passed down generation by generation.
So essentially, Nadara is a descendant, or maybe the prominent characters there is also a descendant of Arcs defenders from base. So, like, for example,
Or, well,
Nadara
very far removed from base.
very far removed from base. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
And
like when I look at Crawford, I quickly think, okay, this has got to be like Xeno and Echo's kid, along with possibly, let's see, what was the other two? Oh yeah, Oza and Marlu from base game, because Marlu had that purple hair, and she was a force just like Oza was a fighter, almost doing like a pair up like Xeno and Echo. So kind of, I'm thinking that those two family lines kind of met up at one point, and Crawford's in that tree somewhere.
1,000-year span, though.
1,000 years, but you have to remember, they could be, because of the cryo-sleeping, you don't know if some of them have been, some families may have been in cryo-sleep for maybe 200, 300 years, therefore shortening the generational distance to the original genetic source.
that's one possibility. Mm-hmm. And there's also like a because if you I'm thinking of it just now. What if we are still Ash, like the
main
MC,
hero of the first one?
the
Yes,
main
we are.
hero of the first one?
Yes,
if
we
we
are.
are the and if we
Definitely
are the if we are the first one, and then essentially the people that we know are already gone, then this is gonna be a new. Then maybe we are also kind of like Xion, Xiao, and all of those people.
Well,
I'm just thinking on this.
Well,
The makeover.
actually, we'd be more like a relic of the past. I'll put it
Yeah,
that way.
relic. That's right.
And
And
just won't die.
yeah,
Well, that's one reason why the Civil War theory has a little bit of ground going. Like, you were so powerful that people would fear you and thus sealed you away. It kind of would make sense for. The thing is that people do fear very powerful or unique individuals and would want them to be put away somewhere safe.
either put away or controlled.
Yes.
Yes. And people feared what they do not understand. So
Yep.
essentially, if of course Ash, aka the MC, us, were to be, of course, uncontrollable, then we essentially have to be sealed away, and the simulation thing would essentially work if that will be the case.
Yeah.
But essentially, if there's also another scenario where, of course, the Ark ship is filled with photons, right? And then Shao and all of those, the gate, the photon gate, something like that. I don't remember the name.
All those
But
gateway ships.
yeah, the gateway ships. Essentially, if I were to connect it in the past, of course in the Akashic records, It's also part of subspace. So maybe Alpha is another subspace.
Oh, you mean like Earth in episode 4?
Yeah. So another subspace that we have escaped to. Essentially, that the ships have been blown away or destroyed, and then the people that we know ended up here in Alpha, and then essentially, of course, they grew up. They had descendants and all of that, and then essentially it will be us. It's our turn to arrive in this planet. Yeah, that's what I'm just spitballing here, but that's also one of those theories that we can look essentially with all of the episodes that we've encountered in base.
Unfortunately, I think that there's a hole in that because we know that as soon as we leave planet Alpha, we're going to other planets, and odds are those planets have other arcs in them. So I could imagine a civil war splitting up arcs, and thus we are probably going to be forced to reunite all these arc factions. That could be a possibility because we were told we were going to be visiting other planets, and I don't see arcs being only on one place because there's still a ship up orbiting this planet, and there's no way that it's completely unmanned.
That's also true. Maybe though, because if you look at it this way, back in base PSO2, the ship is basically a planet. It's a planet size.
That's the motherships.
Yeah, the mothership. That's right. So essentially, if Alpha, if I'm looking at this in another angle, if we already have in the fifth, maybe in the future, we got to the castle in the sky. That is the control room, and then Alpha will turn into a ship, and then we'll go to distant planets to reunite all arcs to, of course, thwart Darkfalls.
Well, no, I think that the planet itself is not a ship. I think that essentially after we take the castle, it'll be like a space catapult. We can exit and enter the planet as we please, because we'll actually have a way of getting to and from the ship above us.
Add on that, the planet itself, you can see there's satellites everywhere. Moon, multiple moons, and then meteorites coming from the sky. I don't think that all that crazy stuff should be in a mothership.
Nope. In fact, actually, you bringing up the stellar fragments that orbit, I actually believe that maybe the developers forgot a few things, because the thing is that we see the stellar fragments in Retem, but if you watch the angle of them, they go right over the Vanford Labs, right to Mount Doom. If they go right over the Vanford Labs, why don't we see them in the Elio region?
I've noticed that too. And if you take a look at the highest point and see where the strings of light go, I guess they didn't really visualize or try to fix it, but the ocean blur at the end of the ocean to make it look like it's an infinite ocean.
Yeah.
Those meteorite lines actually just like go into the ocean. It makes it look like that because the background is a little higher than where they stop, so it makes it look like they just simply somehow fly over random and then into the far end of the ocean. I know they're supposed to be around the planet, and I figured like maybe it's an elliptical type of satellite thing when it comes to these fragments, whereas that's why we can't see them from Alio, but in Rentum, because they get closer as they go through, they hover over Rentum, fly out farther.
The time spacing of geological distance, I don't think so. Because I could see them right next to the Vanford Laboratories. Like, I went right to the edge of the Retem region, right next to the Vanford Laboratories, and I could still see them flying over it.
Here's the problem. This planet is we don't know how big it is, because this is a very small island. It's smaller than Hawaii. It's probably smaller than the Keys in Florida.
Yes.
It's stupidly small. That's why I think of it as
I think
a theme
the scaling might be a little off,
If this planet is, has the same gravity as Earth, maybe, I assume it should be much bigger, but...
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, but
it,
you'll,
it,
you'll
geolo-
go ahead.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, the other side of that I kind of notice is that we have like 3 moons, and yet we don't have tides.
Maybe
Right.
they didn't think too hard on that one. I'm gonna go with the developers didn't think about the gravity too much.
Yeah.
Photons. That's the answer. Photons. I'm gonna
Yeah.
answer everything with photons.
Yeah, well, I also noticed that there seems to be like 2 different technologies on the planet. There's essentially the ARX technology, and then there's xenotechnology. Now, I could see you could easily find ARX technology more among some of the ruinous parts of Retem. Like when we first enter Retem, those parts kind of have the signature of ARC technology, just like the Retem city being essentially a ship engine. In fact, I replayed the ending of base PSO2, and lo and behold, the engines on some of the ships and some of the screenshots look very similar to what Retem City would look like in terms of a shell of an engine. In fact, we can even see the cables on Retem City highlighting that it was probably an engine.
And this is not even a mothership. This is the engine, probably an engine to a normal ship, and that gives you an idea of the size of this island compared to a ship.
Yep. Oh, and something else I noted was, look at the terrain in Retem. Like, there's 2 types of stone for props or instancing within the Retem region. One's a yellowish dry stone. The other one is a darker, almost slightly cooked sandstone. So essentially the only thing that could generate the heat to kind of partially melt that stone would be like an engine falling on top of it, generating a lot of thermal heat.
Watch this island just have thrusters under it and just fly off of the planet into the...
Yeah, I think a ship was starting to break up over Planet Alpha, and parts of it landed in Retem.
Or it could be that all these islands are an actual ship that was just crash landed on this planet and broke apart, and over 1,000 years it just got all this residue. I mean, I don't think that's possible within 1,000 years, but
actually,
you see all the technology through the walls, right? Like in South Aleo, like it's all technology.
Yeah,
I'm throwing a bone here.
Yeah, the technology in South Aleo, definitely I would classify as xenotech. Like, even the shield walls separating the 4 island partitions kind of is a little funky, and it might be one reason why we don't see ARX technology ruins in Aleo region. It's because it stopped that technology from crossing over the barrier.
This game better give me a lot of plot, because so far I haven't got a single bit of plot.
Well, I'm more on the theories of, what is odd here. But
there's lots of odd things.
Yeah, but now we also got, I covered the stone areas. Now, we got to ask that little elephant in the room, why is there a factory in the dome in Retem? Like, that one is a big question. And the thing is, when I encountered that, I'm like, what's going on here? Is this like a factory for making dolls? Like, could the dolls be taking ARX operatives that they kill and recycling them for making dolls units?
Could be. So for those people who don't pay attention to their surroundings, if you look at the cylinders, the tubes in Lower McKeed, they're basically filled with the blue goo you see inside dolls. It looks exactly the same and it flows the same way.
That's correct.
Yeah, so,
It's doll juice.
Yeah, so effectively we could say that in the dome is a doll's factory, but looking at some of the parts, it's definitely xenotechnology. It's not ARX technology. So we have to ask, what is going on here? Like, in that passage tunnel from ruined Aleo Town, you definitely see way more of a computer interface there. So maybe, and the computer interface parts are only so far shown in the Aleo region, which makes me wonder, okay, is there a computer trying to manage the Retem region to make it more hospitable for life, whereas it generates or controls the other areas into certain environments to provoke evolution of certain ways, like just one of those early NGS Central comics where, and this is going back to the techno-organic nature of dolls, where they evolve to match their environment. Like, I was actually surprised that the laser donkeys weren't smaller.
Hmm. Yeah. And when you wait, let me just think about this one. Yeah, it's true. It's true that um, the Lower Makid is kind of like a doll's factory, but also essentially maybe it's a little bit of both. Like it's Xenotech and also Arcs Tech. Like um if there's something that is preventing it's also hospitable, but essentially wait, let me just think about this one.
Oh,
I
you went in a little too deep.
Yeah, we went a little too deep. That's
Yeah.
right. Because it's kind of like a little bit of both. Because if you look at dolls, yeah, they're it's Xenotech. But if you can see like essentially this planet once this planet is gathering the dead in order for them. I'm just spitballing here again, but if we were to theorize this, of course, there's a lot of arcs that died all throughout thousands of years, right? And essentially, if dolls are made of goo like that, maybe there are like fossils or something, and then and gasoline and whatever. I'm just spitballing, but that's also one theory on it. Like essentially the technology of arcs and also the Xeno merged together in one amalgamation, such as dolls.
Mm, it would probably be another faction's arc technology. I would not be putting it. I have a funny feeling that there's no way that arcs is completely unified at this point.
Yeah.
Think back to what was it, episode 2, where we learned about void apparatus. They were a faction within arcs that was controlled by Luther, and they were
Yes.
plotting things. So I can easily imagine that Sega would recycle some of this amazing idea of having arcs factions. So I'm willing to bet that there may be some Arcs factions that are probably doing things behind the scenes that we don't know of. Like maybe Manin's part of another faction that's keeping an eye on things, seeing how things fold out to, put in check certain other factions. It's a possibility. Because we got
That is true.
literally two types of technology. We got the Xenotech and the Arcs tech, but
Arcs
the
tech.
but the technology within the dome seems almost completely Xeno-based. It's using almost the same materials as that of the cocoons. In fact, something I just thought of that was kind of odd is think about all the enemy types. We got dolls, we got formers, and we got alters, and we got the tames. Now, the thing is that the formers we brought in. The dolls, we don't know if they're native or if they're foreign. The alters, we can probably assume are a native species. So, why is it that the native species and the formers are getting along just fine? But furthermore, why are their former species also in the cocoons in the simulations? And the other question to ask is, why are these three groups not attacking each other? That's an odd thing that I kind of found. It's going like, if the dolls are like arcs, wouldn't the native life be also hostile towards them? Or unless they have a generator on them that makes the animals not see them as hostile.
Are you talking about the altars?
Yeah, the alters. The
Altars
species.
are there's a reason they're called altars. They've been altered by them. Whoever made the dolls. That's probably the theory here, because that's why they got the name. They're animals of this or creatures of this planet that have been altered to, attack arcs and have those weird abilities and look all that crazy. Like the Afro bird, the annoying Afro bird.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's.
annoying Afro bird.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
oh!
then
Don't
there's
get me started
formers.
on those Afro birds. They're so annoying. But they do add a reason to be ranged. But yeah, there's so many little questions we got to ask, and we got to see which theories can match up the best with them. Now, admittedly, whenever you make a story, there's always going to be a plot hole somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck, Sega.
Yeah. But the other thing I kind of noted...
Sega.
Yeah, the thing that I also kind of noted is that if you look at the dolls, like, especially with the boss dolls, like Nix Alio, Dark Falls, and some of the other ones, when they get damaged enough, they go red. But they undergo a mutation, but it looks like the mutation is unstable. Kind of like the power is overflowing, and they can't control the power levels anymore properly.
I assume like their doll juice spills out and it immediately crystallizes through oxygen or something.
No, more like if we can think of the solution as a psychosomatic kind of, think of the Ghostbusters version, the second Ghostbusters movie where the slime reacted to emotions and thoughts. Think of the liquid as doing the same thing, but if in a red state, it's the emotions or thought pattern of the doll's unit is unstable, therefore the solution becomes unstable, meaning that it mutates into a more powerful state even though it's unstable.
Okay. I like that idea. That seems like it works.
Because I observed Dark Falls, when he went red, he mutated a bit, and then when you go into the third phase, he mutates further, even though he should have... In fact, I actually have to classify Dark Falls as a regenerator type of Dark Falls, because he actually regenerates his arms during the fight. So I have to classify him as a regenerator type of Dolls unit. So he's a special type of techno-organic entity within the Dolls hierarchy. Because when you finish him off when you start off phase 3 with his fight, he's mutated a little bit more, and then when you push him back far enough and he goes into his blue state, you see that the mutation reverts back as if he's, more in control again, or his reactor isn't as overloading because it had time to vent.
So basically, the DOS unit have emotions. Oh, and reacts to negativity.
Well, it's more like a survival instinct kicks in, going like, I don't want to die. And I don't want to die is so hard as an emotion or an instinct that it actually forces a mutation to survive, even if it's unstable. Because what is the one prerogative that all living things have? It's survive.
Survive. And you have the fight of life mechanism, adrenaline, and all of those. Yep.
Just wish you could just poke their little tubey bodies and let the things spill out. Or if you damage them enough, I would like to see them slowly spilling out that stuff.
No, I think the design, they have probably a nanomachine skin that makes sure that the fluid doesn't leak out, even when damaged.
I'm thinking of everything!
I always think of possibilities. I never narrow down anything completely until there's something can completely rule it out.
I mean, that's also one possibility that they have nanomachines, but I think it would be cool if they add that feature, like if there are some dolls units that can bleed, right?
They probably wouldn't do that due to the ESRB settings.
Right.
I actually have a question for you. Now, as you know how the story has been going so far for New Genesis, short, doesn't really give you any hints. I mean, it gives you hints with like the areas, but no actual confirmed dialogue explaining the situation. Now, do you think that's going to continue once the Tundra area comes out? I assume we get the Tundra area, whatever the next area is.
Yeah, in fact, I'm betting on Tundra area myself, because if you look at the bridge layout, it's Retem doesn't connect to Mount Doom at all, which kind of hints, okay, yeah, it's got to be tundra. Because, again, the bridge layout was everything connects to Alio, nothing connects to anything else but Alio. So Alio is the central point, therefore Mount Doom has a low chance of it, but it's still there, of being it. It's just... Tundra definitely feels like it's it, but the thing is, I have an idea of what some of the hazards or surprises will be in the Tundra area. Is that they could actually have areas where you can walk, but it's actually a pit covered by snow, and if you step over it, you actually fall in. They could do that. If that actually happens to mountain climbers in some of the snowy areas in the mountains, where they actually fall into crevices that have been snowed over.
I'll do
That's
that,
true.
but I'll love to see that more, something new and different.
Yeah, in fact, actually, something I would like to do is for them to add at least a little bit of a hazard into each area. Like, when we go picking up...
Right?
Yeah, but the thing is that when we go picking up stuff, we can easily see it at night when we actually really shouldn't. What if they made a alternate little hazard that was, shades itself? So this way you don't see it in the dark. So if you run into it, you get a good sudden wallop of something, like a status effect that lasts 1 good minute, because you weren't paying attention or being cautious when moving around in the dark. But during the day, you could see it very easily as it, shades itself.
I was curious why they didn't let you know how in base PSO where you get struck by lightning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so in Retem, the clouds or the dust storm creates that electric thing. Like, how come you don't sometimes get hit by those and make that a title as well? Just that feature, because it makes it feel like it's an actual world and it's dangerous or something. You gotta watch out.
Yeah, well, I think that they're afraid that they'd have to make a special little realism thing for the cast where they have to worry about shorting out.
I mean, but they're cyborgs. They're fine. Like, I feel like going back to expecting anything closer to what hinting what's going to be happening in story. I don't think they're going to give us any dialogue hints until after all areas are open and it spells out arcs.
Yeah.
Then we start getting the bigger picture.
Oh, good. You actually pointed it out. That's probably the name sequence.
Right.
I didn't think about that.
So Alio is A, Redem is R. The next area is what was the name? Khatum, I think it is. I think it's Khatum.
Oh, that's the name of the new weapons that are coming out.
Right, and it's going to be based on the area. So it's going to spell out arcs. It's obvious. And if you notice the dominas, how we have the ale domina, the red domina, we're going to get an arcs domina when we get all four and we can merge them together through the crafting system. Hey, theory crafting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually really good. I didn't think about that.
I feel like that's the most obvious things. You guys thought of the things that I would have never thought of. You went deep into story lore. I was thinking of just mechanics.
Oh, believe me, I'm a bit of a game designer by hobby, so I kind of know how to design things. And they definitely are doing a lot of environmental storytelling in NGS. So you can't just go like, okay, just go through the cutscenes and I learn everything. No, you actually have to wander the environment, look at things, and ask a few questions.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, literally there's a lot of environmental storytelling that, like, some people were going like, I think there's a relationship between dolls and Halfa, and then we're like, from the Dark Falls quest, and then we're like, why do you think that? I said, look at the floor, and then look at the cocoons. And then after the Dark Falls quest, they went like, you're right, why didn't I notice that?
Yeah, why do the cocoons spawn these things and become these weird training platforms?
Well, the thing is that I actually think if Planet Halfa is an artificial planet, the dolls actually made it. And we are the visitors. That would explain the mashing of the technology very well, of why...
the dolls want to train us.
Or actually, we're the invaders. They essentially had something build the planet, we arrived, and then we're like, hey, these jerks are invading our home world. Let's kick them off.
That's also one of the theories, kind of like the body, and then the dolls are the white blood cells. So they're trying to fend us off because essentially, if you think of it this way, of course, the tames, right? They are like the
Neutral
animals.
wildlife, yeah.
Yeah, the neutral wildlife, and then we're killing them off. We're killing
Especially
them
the
off for
rappies.
yeah for yes, yeah, especially rappies.
The whole story, it's all on the rappies. The dolls are sick of the rappies dying, so they're trying to kill us to stop us from murdering the rappies. You bully my
Aw.
rappies.
Yeah,
The,
maybe
s-
they.
the
Yeah, maybe
sweet
the dolls
sweet
got.
rappies.
Yeah, maybe the dolls got entranced by the rappies singing and dancing. And were like, "Aww."
Rappy tappies. Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, we got to make some more rappy meals.
Yes,
Oh yeah, we're getting those now, aren't we? Like,
yes.
on that.
Yeah.
500 AC. I think you only get it once when you like purchase something with that
Yeah.
by that amount. I think it's not gonna
Yeah.
be like, oh, you can buy this as much as you want.
No, it's 500 AC, and from the headline, I remember it.
Yep.
But yeah, there's literally, I think that there's a lot more environmental storytelling going on. Like, I actually believe Crawford has a real beef and a history with Dark Falls. Because from that little cutscene right at the end of the urgent
Like,
quest,
for sure, he says for sure. I
He's been
will.
working.
I will.
yep,
Yeah.
he
He's been
has
working
a
on that
beef.
cannon for years.
Yeah, he's been building that cannon for years. He must have one hell of a beef.
I wonder what Dark Falls did before, blowing up Alio Town. Like that got Crawford to want to build that Central City cannon.
Yeah. In fact, actually,
Because you get the idea of that because if you read the Central Girls comics, you get an idea of
Yes.
like why he's working on it. He makes his room cool, obviously, because he's that type of character. But he also the serious part of him is we got to kill Dark Falls. Got to put more work on this cannon. That's why the mining rigs are there, more supplies and all that shit.
yeah. Well, actually, something that kind of baffled me and it kind of thought about it a little bit. Look at the map, and we'll see that Alio Town is in essentially the southwest corner of the map. Dark Falls appears over Lake Haphelia, which is northeast of Alio Town, or Central City. It kind of makes a line through Central Alio between the two appearances, which kind of makes me go like, how did he sneak around? And is he
He
actually
just-
trying to approach and contain the arcs within Alio or exterminate them within Alio?
It's a little jarring for Dark Falls to suddenly just pop in when like we're not even far in the story to just. It feels like it's going on a speed run. There's no like you're used to playing a game where it focuses on build up. Here, there's no build up. It's just Dark Falls is here to just fuck with you.
Yeah, well, actually, I have a funny feeling the dolls are probably taking prisoners. Because think about the first chapter, where we got to Alio Town, we met Gara, who, admittedly, as soon as I saw Aina, I was thinking of Stratos right there. Like, I was going like, is this a descendant of Stratos right there? And the thing is that Gara had a voice actor. And I'm going like, there's no way that they are just going to have this voice actor voice like one small little bit. He's got to return, so I have a funny feeling the dolls are capturing arcs. And maybe using them, as I theorized before, as a control system or a brain to operate other dolls' units remotely. Kind of like, I'm going to use XCOM 2 here, where the commander was actually, his brain was actually being used to process the tactics of the alien faction.
I didn't play XCOM 2. No, I know.
I read a little bit of the synopsis of the commander for XCOM 2. Because I actually have it, and I kind of was interested in a little bit in the story because I know I'm never going to be able to completely finish it. But no, I think that the dolls are taking some arcs captive to probably be used some way to enhance other dolls, or at least be a part of their plans for dealing with arcs. Because essentially they're probably going. I believe that the dolls might be going with the saying of, you know the enemy to beat the enemy.
It's weird.
That's one possibility.
That
Mhm.
none of them communicate. I guess maybe they do communicate, not telepathically, but like let's say Wi-Fi, just for shits and gigs, photons.
Actually, I'll use a idea that probably fits. They're communicating on IP version 6 while we're communicating on IP version 4, and you can't translate between the two very easily. Unless you've got a little bit of a translation layer in there.
They're of a higher dimension. I don't know. I just wish Dark Falls would say stuff to me as we fight him.
Yeah.
He just doesn't say anything.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Dark Falls kind of makes me think of Elder, which makes me kind of go like, okay, did, maybe one ARC's member have a memory of Dark Falls and the adults use that as a template for building Dark Falls?
Cybernetic Dark Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is that we already kind of got hints that there may be a connection between Shao's species and the dolls, because the fluid, the fact that they kind of have the Pettis series, which are humanoid in design, which is very similar to us, and they actually use weapons which do fit in some of our categories, more specifically some of the Council of Six heroes. So, maybe there is more of a connection there than we think.
You got me. I'm starting to overthink it, because didn't we kill Primordial Darkness? Oh, technically, that got stopped with the alternate ending.
No, the thing is that the rule is that I think when you deal with a page of the Akashic Records, you can kill off the evil for that page, but because of the way that existence works, you can stop and kill off or seal off part of it, but you can never completely destroy it, or it'll be reborn. In fact, actually,
1,000-year cycle.
Yeah, essentially the cycle has to repeat, because in fact, actually, I'm thinking of the primordial darkness as anti-existence. Essentially, it's something that exists but doesn't exist at the same time. Like, I'm quite sure that none of you know this, because I actually did take a bit of knowledge into electronics, but there is actually such a thing as negative frequency, or negative time in electronics, which is very weird, but that's because of the square root minus I variable in some of the equations. Yeah, there's a minus imaginary number that's supposed to be square rooted that they can't get rid of. That generates this negative frequency or negative time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there could be Dark Falls could be a form of anti-existence. In fact, actually, this goes back to history repeating itself. With our character's memory forgotten, maybe there's a reason why the existence came into being, because a part of the record of it being destroyed may have been forgotten.
And I also have a theory about profound darkness, because of course, profound darkness cannot die, right? The dark falls cannot essentially die. It as long as there are arcs and as long as there are photons, dark falls will return. So if this thousands of years would make dark falls come back, then essentially there is some entity that profound darkness has taken over. And I'm also thinking that Manon is high cast, or at the same time, maybe she's also profound darkness hidden, the kind of like Matoy of some sort.
Oh, yes. Yes, I actually forgot about that. Matoy was host to the Profound Darkness.
Yes, and profound darkness, if they absorb photons, right?
They turn those photons into negative photons, effectively
yes,
gaining
that's
power.
correct. So essentially, if Ark's defenders also has the ability to um, absorb photons,
Anti-photons.
because yes,
Anti-photons.
anti-photons. So being that in conversion, maybe Manon is also profound darkness. Or essentially, if in any case, if Manon is not profound darkness, then maybe Aina is profound darkness.
She's too innocent. But then again, that innocence kind of matches Matoy's innocence at the beginning.
Yes,
Plot
at the
twist.
beginning.
The
Plot
dad
twist.
is profound darkness. He's come back from the dead.
Mm.
He's probably not
That's
even dead. Who
also
knows?
that's also one possibility, because essentially when Dark Falls like wipe out the whole Elio town, there's no traces of body left. So uh,
Yeah.
it's also one theory that Dark Falls captured them, essentially turning them into Source, or of course, if you remember base, right, Getem Halt is the um strongest fighter, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's essentially strong, and then Elder took over his body.
Yep.
So maybe Garoa will also have
Event where he
the
ends
same
up
thing.
being a host to Dark Falls.
Yeah, being host to Dark Falls, and then of course, father and daughter duel, then plot twist,
Yeah, that kind of sounds
profound
like
darkness.
the cliche way that story writers would go. But you did raise a good point that the bodies are missing.
The
Now,
bodies are
mind,
missing.
yeah, the bodies are missing. Now, that could just be an ESRB thing to make sure that the ratings don't go up too high. Or it
Yeah.
actually is a story element where they are taking bodies to be used for enhancing probably their own numbers. Now, in fact, actually thinking of the versions of dolls that we will probably see in the tundra, if I know some of the biology laws, the dolls should be bigger, have no fins, and essentially be as smooth as possible in terms of their surfaces to avoid edges for heat loss. And they would probably be bigger so this way they have more volume to surface area, thus being able to keep their heat.
I can also theorize this, adding to that description of the new dolls, to be in the Chanda region, equalizers,
The equalizers
because
are in every region, so no, we can't say
hmm,
equalizers.
hmm,
Equalizers will be found in there, but probably they're not going to be exclusive there. Because when the level cap comes in, they're going to probably start spreading them out all over the place. Now, thinking about
hmm.
the level cap, if we were to go with the original schedule, and we got to the fifth area, we would have probably hit around level 80, 90, which is about when we would have finished the game. So maybe that's when our memories return, when we finish off the Lapida in the sky.
And then essentially, it's also one theory that is also the castle in the sky is also a control room where we can find clues about the past.
Yes. In fact, actually, I'm willing to bet if we find clues about the past, it'll be
In
very
the tower.
movie based. And we'll probably uncover some of our memories, and it'll probably raise other questions. In fact, I actually have a big one that I'm surprised that no one thought of, is that at the end of base PSO2, we knew the Lillipans, the Draconians, and the Daybreakers, and yet we don't see a trace of them anywhere. Where are
That's
they?
right.
Like, when we got to the Rotem region, I was going to be expecting to find a Lillipan or two, but they aren't there. We don't even... It's like going like, did they miss something? Didn't the... if I can't remember the cast's name, Flan, or darn it, I can't remember her name. But that one cast was able to communicate with the Lillipans. So I'm willing to bet at least over a course of about at least 50 or 100 years, they would have found a way of communicating properly. So why aren't the Lillipans around? The Daybreakers speak the same language, but we don't see them around. And the Draconians, they started somewhat joining ARCs or cooperating with ARCs. Why aren't they around? There's way too many questions going like, where are these other races that we interacted with? It's just ARCs here. Like, what are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on this spook?
I don't really know. I actually wonder where the what do you call the what's the area? You know the first area in base, the whole what's the planet called? Nefarious?
Nefarious, yes.
Nefarious. What happened to the rappies of Nefarious? You know, the ones that just look like chicks, little chickens.
I think those ones are probably dragged. Oh, let's see. Yeah, the rappies I think were teleported in as part of the formers. But
yeah, just how come we don't see the other ones?
Oh, you mean like
you know, the ones without the big head. And we see see
those big puffy seasonal ones.
No, I don't know about okay, you know how in base PSO when you start off and join the forest area in Nefarious, you see those yellow
the rappy
chicken
key.
thing.
The rappy key.
That one. This
key.
one.
Yeah, the king rappies.
I don't know about king raps. I'm not talking about like
the king rappies were essentially the much larger rappy with a little crown on their head.
Yeah, no, I think that's Emperor Rappy, but hold on. I'm going to show you what it looks like so you understand. Nav Rappy, yeah, it's called the Nav Rappy. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, Nav Rappy.
Hold on, I'll post it here in... Where am I?
I see it. I see it. Rappy, so cute. Oh,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's
that thing. You see how all these other creatures that you see in the different areas in base somehow migrated this planet? How come those haven't migrated? Like, there's many questions why all these... There's cats and dogs are here too, just...
Well, actually, the dogs in Rotem seem to be a mutation. Like, they have armored body parts, so that kind of means that they aren't exactly dogs. Although they probably have a gene base related to dogs, but they have a couple of traits that are not dog-like. Yeah, the Nav Rappies, they are missing. Huh. Yeah,
and they're a stable thing you see in PSO in like, you know, the previous games. So it's weird that I don't see those here.
Yeah, well,
maybe they'll be in the tundra or a different area.
Yeah, there could be a tundra flavor of them, but something else is bugging me. Why did they bring in the former robots from Lillipand in with them? Those would be a hazardous thing to drag in with them. Now that I think about it. They bring in dangerous robots with them, and they land in the Rotem region. Why would you bring dangerous robots that wouldn't offer a ecological benefit? That doesn't make sense.
They could have been there from the start. Who knows?
No. The models exactly match those found in Lillipand, unless they were kept as samples in the hold for research or study, and they got out and multiplied, kind of like the replicators in Stargate.
No clue. We gotta wait at least till June to see anything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely like to see a little bit of a trailer or sneak peek at the tundra region.
Oh, that's definitely happening in April.
Yeah. Oh, I really hope so.
Yeah, they're gonna tease it in the April headline for sure, and then May is gonna give us more information. They're gonna do the same thing like they did with Redum.
Well, Redum we got immediately after we got far enough in the story.
Oh, you mean like the to be continued thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I meant like when it comes to headlines. We didn't get a to be continued thing for chapter 2.
No, we didn't. That was kind of a cheese off for me. I was going like, I want a little preview, unless they want to keep us guessing as to which of the two it's going to be.
I think they would essentially do that so that we can talk about it.
Yeah, or theorize it.
Yeah, or theorize it. That's right. Because there are some people who also would. At first, me too. I thought of Mount Doom to be the next region. But when you essentially look at the deeper parts of things, yeah, definitely Tundra will be the next one. And adding to Spook's theory, it's gonna spell arc and
Yeah,
then
it's got to start with a K.
yeah, arcs, and then
Yeah.
what's gonna be the fifth name?
Yeah.
Although, but
Well, it could be. Oh. There's another way that they could do it. They could use essentially, depending on how you want to think about it, Halpha. Again, there's that number 1 there.
yes,
So they could be using another language, i.e., Hebrew or Greek. They could be using another word that essentially uses Halpha or the Hebrew word that has the same numerical value as 1. So this way it would be Arcs 1, as in Arcs Planet 1.
and then there's a bunch of other planets that you can
Yep.
because you can visit. It's also the subspace theory that's been going on because if I'm thinking of the history of Fantasy Star, there's a lot of red herrings, but essentially there are other red herrings that kind of piece it together in such a way that is it's confusing at first, but when you progress through the story,
Yeah,
that
essentially
red
there's a contradiction and something
in
later will explain
contradiction.
the contradiction.
That's correct. And essentially, if I'm thinking of PSO or Fantasy Star Portable 2, um, if you played that game, there's there are entities like, for example, Xiao and Xion, but on this entity, they're also taking over the body. So it's essentially like Dark Falls, but it's not Dark Falls. If you um, if you kind of look at what the characters are essentially playing as, I'm kind of spitballing again on this, but if Manon is more or less profound darkness, then who's gonna be the light? Maybe it's us
Or Aina. Aina's innocent
or
enough.
Aina. Yes, Aina is.
Aina is oozing innocence at the beginning.
That's right. And she has to fight the.
Yeah.
She has to fight the darkness, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, that kind of puts them as a yin-yang pair, each one complementing the other's weakness.
That's correct. Because if you think about it this way as well, wait, I'm thinking of subclass of each of the characters. Like Manon is force/fighter, right?
Yeah.
She wields the rod
And the twin
and
daggers.
also in the twin daggers, and Aina is not showing her subclass. Where is her subclass?
Well, her subclass could be... She could be a ranger gunner or a gunner ranger. Same weapon.
Or essentially another class that will come out soon
Or a bit later.
or a bit later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm also thinking of Aina being a summoner. But
That
that's
one
kind of a bit of stretch.
Yeah, that one is a bit of a stretch for me. Although, oddly enough, I did make, for the NGS Open, a 2 dash emotes that probably would have fit Summoner great if you were looking more at the base PSO2. But, well, I'll leave it at that. But, yeah, there's a lot of little... In fact, I actually started thinking up of some class ideas or concepts for NGS. Recycling as much as possible so this way they don't have to cook up a whole ton of new skills or features, and they could just recycle a lot, and it'd still be very well, and it'd have its own little designs and gimmicks while still being reasonably nice. And I think I designed, or at least started designing of 3 of them. Like, I ended up coming up with let's see, what was it? A shinobi, or a ninja type design. One was more of a martial artist, like not a fighter using the knuckles martial artist. No, this is like a martial artist that uses the knuckles and the jet boots.
So both.
Yeah. It would have. I designed it a little bit more oddly, although the shinobi I designed with a really weird design. It has a really interesting gimmick to it. I'm trying to remember what the third one was. Well, I can't remember it, but the other thing that I was starting to design around was when they made NGS, they essentially made race mute. It didn't matter. You could literally pick human and still look like a Cast or a Newman or Dooman with complete full-on traits and not even a shred of humanity, which kind of irked me a bit because, for me, I kind of agree with Ryan Dancy when he made PFO in that choices matter and fun is hard. And for me, that's true. If choice is only meaningful if it actually is a hard choice. If it's too easy to go like, oh yes, just this, it's not really a choice. I would definitely like to see us being able to change or alter a little bit of the story as we please. Like, there's one thing that in fact, I actually came up with this concept of, now I know a lot of people want to avoid PvP. But the thing is that we got people going like, we want Rappy Racing. Well, Rappy Racing is a form of PvP. It's player versus player. It's competition. Any form of competition or combat between players is PvP. So, when you shout no PvP, that means no races, no competitions against other players. You essentially are saying no to those. You're technically going only for the combat version, but in a way, because you say no to PvP, you wrap up the non-combat versions along with it. So people have to be kind of a little bit careful about the words. Now, I ended up coming up with a concept called IPVP, or indirect PvP. And this is a very interesting concept where, essentially, I was designing an entire thing with the story elements and whatnot that would actually help explain it, and help also allow for to shift or move the story a little bit in some way. Not completely, but a little bit. Was that the design was 3 factions. Each player picks a faction that they belong to. And essentially what would happen is they'd go through a training room. The training room would record the player's specs. So in other words, their armor, their weapon, their skills, their main class, subclass, and learn from them a little bit. In other words, see which techniques or tactics they use the most under certain situations. Take that and make it a template such that when the actual IPVP happens, it takes that data and uses it as a proxy for the player in the actual event. So in other words, you're still fighting a NPC AI, but has some human element training to it, along with features of it. Now this would mean that anyone who uses Giant armor without, actually fixing the resistance issue of minus 237 when you have all 3, sorry, Keroppi and Thrift Shopping, it's minus 2733 when you have all three and you don't fix it. It means any Techer or Force could decimate you quickly because you've maxed out like a glass cannon. And it would essentially allow for a form of PvP, but it's not PvP, it's still PvE, it's just been assisted by player data. And you could then have scenarios like, the Divide quests, where we actually got to pick scenarios and we actually did missions on that. It would shake things up.
I'd love to keep talking, but I do need to get going.
Yeah, I think that's probably getting it to be it for tonight. We got an hour and 20 of audio, which
that's a lot. We talked a little deep into territory that I think we'd get into, considering how much we know.
Yeah, well,
you flew rocket.
Well, I'm an observant SOB, so I end up going like, okay, I noticed this. Why is it there? Because I know game developers, especially really good ones, don't place things by mistake. They put things there with a purpose.
Can't wait to see how much you're right.
Because, in fact, actually, have you seen the door under the pyramid or near the pyramid?
Yes.
The thing is, I've seen that footage, and I'm kind of going, the door prop seems a little incomplete. That's just my opinion. The door prop seems incomplete. So maybe they sealed it off to make sure that people wouldn't look at it, an incomplete prop, because they were short on time.
Be that? I don't even know how we would get there. Probably through some
well, actually, apparently
storyline event. Who knows?
Well, I think sooner or later it'll open up. Probably when we go through Mount Doom, or when we hit to the 5th area, then it'll open up. But I have a funny feeling that door is right now just a temporary placeholder prop. They didn't have enough time to finish it off. So it was probably supposed to be one of these mysteries of the Ritem region we were supposed to wander and find, but because they couldn't finish off the prop in time, because of the timetable, they just sealed it off. In fact, actually, there's a region in Alio where I swear there's probably a door there, and I don't know how to access it. Like, it's literally just looking at that one panel, I go like, it feels like if I was the game designer, I'd be putting a door right there. Because I'm willing to bet there's all sorts of little hidden secrets and rooms throughout the area, but they have not had enough time to add them, or they want to make sure that they expose those secrets later.
Or like they're just delaying it. They already finished it, but of course, since content, they would they would just okay, let's just put it there. Let's wait until they're in this threshold, and then we'll add it later, sooner or later.
Well,
something
we'll
like that.
Probably have when the 5th area is opened up, we'll probably have to reinvestigate all these areas and activate switches or whatnot.
Yeah, and hopefully in the near future we can look back at this theory crafting and see how much we got right and how much we got wrong.
Well, we got a lot of possibilities covered, so we at least got to get something right.
That's right.
Yeah, but I would really like it if Sega made races matter again. Like, I ended up thinking of a method of making sure that races were relevant, and they offered something that hinted back to the original PSO2 heritage that the race used to have, but yet not be so asininely class-locked. Like, one of the options that I was going to go was, like, look, casts have mechanical arms. Couldn't we give them, like, grappling hooks for closing in on the enemy, like the Wired Lance weapon action as a racial trait for them? Whereas, the Newmans, because lo and behold, they were heavily tech-based back then, they can put up as a weapon action or a racial weapon action, a shield in front of them to block or be able to do the Talus turret. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna head off, guys. You have a good one. Keep talking.
Of
I gotta
course.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Spook, for coming.
Yeah, you're the ones that said the talk the most. So I'm glad I was able to be able to find more information, or
Well-
not find information, but get more insight ideas.
Yeah, well, you also got at least a starting point for a whole new video.
Maybe.
Well,
I've
look
been
at
on
it
the
this
late
way.
department for that one.
Yeah, well, you got essentially a new video going like 1 hour 30 minutes long, going like speculation from the Protoner Guild.
Yeah, we can go with that.
Yeah, because my own channel is just starting.
I mean, I could say the same thing about mine.
Yeah,
It's still starting.
yeah, but
We'll see what we can do with that. I need to really get going. But you have a wonderful night, guys. Thank
Yeah,
you so
of
much for
course.
inviting me.
yeah, well, at least you got things to think about.
I'm going to have a lot to think about.
And you have and if you recorded it, you can go like, okay, let's listen to that again, see if someone was right.
I should have, but next time.
Well, I have the recording and it'll be put up on YouTube in my channel. So,
I appreciate it.
well, at least this way there's a recording of all this speculation and talk.
Just pass me your YouTube channel when you can.
Oh, you mean, the
Or-
YouTube channel?
Wherever you're uploading it, yeah. Thank you kindly. Oh, it's literally called the Protonica. Got it.
Yeah, I kind of did a play did a little bit of pun work in base because there was the photoners, and I like wanting to run proton, so I went protoner and went
I want a
guild.
neutroner.
I'm a protoner. I want proton. I want PSO2 to run on the Steam Deck.
All right. I hope it does run on the Steam Deck because I kind of want to get one. But
Well,
in any case,
well, actually,
I will.
I know the steps that they'd have to take. They'd have to first get Linux compatibility by changing the ANI cheat, and then
Right.
from there it should be able to start running on the Steam Deck, although they might need to do a few tweaks here and there.
It'll happen eventually.
Yeah,
Just
well,
give it
we
time.
gotta get voicing to Sega going like, we want Steam Deck support. In
I
fact,
hope
actually
it
I have a video
eventually-
showing that, yeah, PSO2 should run fine in Linux. I actually have a video up on the channel.
I'll have to watch it. Have a good night, dudes.
Yep.
All right, have a
Right.
good night.
Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So I guess that'll be it for tonight. This is going to be
Alright.
already a very long, lengthy video to start splicing in a video for.
Editing it. the bane of all creators. Editing.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to be editing this in Caden Live in Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wraps it up for this theory crafting and discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any other ideas, I hope to see your comments below, and hopefully we can see anything else that we could have missed, or if people think that we're on cue on some of these ideas. And maybe elaborate further on something that we may have missed that reinforces it or dismisses it. I would pretty much like to hear or should I say, read your thoughts on it, and others would probably be enjoying your ideas and concepts as well for what could be going on. What are the truths in this world? And we will probably find out sooner or later, but again, being Sega, there might be some missing elements that will never be solved. I hope to read and see all your comments, and maybe they'll be discussed in another later video. And on a little note, after thinking about it a little bit, on Spook's theory that the next region will be starting off with a K, I also think it is correct that it'll be also 5 letters long, along with the region that Mount Doom is from. I think we're going to be dealing with 5-letter regions. Helio's 5 letters, Ritem's 5 letters. It's a pattern, so hopefully I'm right that the next region will be K with 5 letters, and that'll reinforce it, and then we can know the pattern for Mount Doom. And hopefully we get our answers, and we can find out. And thank you for watching, and hit subscribe if you enjoyed this video.